Welcome everyone to the Public Works, Parks and Recreation meeting of the Warren County Board of Supervisors. We'll begin with, I think we'll begin with Parks and Rec, the Parks and Rec agenda. Chair will entertain a motion regarding the minutes of previous meetings. Mr. Wild on the motion, Mr. Merlino on the second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Move right into the action agenda. Resolution request club snowmobiling funding annual agreement. Chair will entertain a motion bringing this to the floor for consideration. Ms. Hogan, Mr. Leggett on the second. Alrighty, what do we have here, gentlemen?
Okay.
Go ahead, Tim.
You're not going to do the first one?
Yeah, he's doing it first.
1-4.
Okay, so what I've done with the, from our past, we've done the snowmobile funding from the county to actually the towns. This time around, we're going to go with the 3 clubs coming directly to me, for me to pay out, versus going through the town, except for Mr. Molino's already done his agreement back in November. So it's going to go, each club is going to come through me this time,
Alright.
versus the individual towns.
Well, that should streamline things pretty well. Is there any particular reason why it went through the towns originally?
Yeah, it went to the towns before, and the towns would pay out the clubs. Basically, the towns had contracted with the clubs to maintain the trails. But some of the towns, I wouldn't necessarily say that it was a hassle to them, but I guess to some degree it was. So for us to kind of collect the paperwork, because the new auditing procedures ask for any backup of whatever maintenance that was done to the trails, we're equipped to do that. Tim does that already with a couple of the clubs, so this would just make it easier to streamline it through us.
All right. Mr. Merlino?
Yeah, I like it, but we did it early because my club always wants the money the first week of January.
Right. Correct.
The end of January, you know, but
Your club's
I think it's good.
staying the way it was.
You want to stay?
Yep.
I have no problem.
Yep.
Any more discussion?
Yeah.
Mr. Leggett?
Just for clarification, Chester never did directly to North Warren. We have our own contract, but it's not for this 27,000.
I'm not familiar with.
So, 3,500.
So North Warren?
North Warren went through Oregon, did they not?
North Warren goes through Horicon, yes.
Yeah, North Warren went through the town of Horicon. That's where this.
So that's where this 27,000.
27, yes,
Okay.
would be. So basically, Thurman now is Ken Brooks president. That would have gone through the town of Thurman. They had the biggest problem because they were such a small town. They didn't have the money to put up front.
Okay.
So this is the reason we came back and did it. Okay, well, when you have your receipts or proof of your eligibility to get the money, I will release it. It can be done in portions,
Yeah.
up to 27,000. So if they can't come up with 27,000, we don't give it to them. We do another program through the state of New York, which is the grant and aid program that comes directly also to me. So we just said it's just as simple to make everything snowmobile come through me. I know what receipts have been used for state, so we don't have an overlap.
Correct, and this is for the Warren County Trail System.
All right.
Correct. Makes sense.
Correct.
Thank you.
And the motion, was the motion for all 3, to approve all 3? All right.
Yeah.
All right, you've heard the motion. It's been seconded. Any further discussion? There being none, are we ready?
Same dollar amounts as last year.
Same dollar amounts.
Are we ready for the question then? All those in favor of approving the contract with the county and the snowmobile clubs indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. All right.
Okay, Mr. Chairman, the next one I have is to amend the Lime Timber agreement that we did for the Hague snowmobile system. It had a shortfall of $95. So through Mary's office and myself and Lime Timber, we come up with an amendment, which is on page 5 and 6. There's a small amendment for $95 to make up the shortfall from last year.
Sure. Chair, I'll entertain a motion. Mr. Merlino on the motion, second. Mr. McGowan on the second. Any discussion on this? Ready for the question? Mr. Leggett.
Yeah, what's the length of the snowmobile trail going through Lime? This is up in Hague, correct?
Correct. It starts at Fly Brook Road, goes all the way out through Peyton Narrum. I don't know the total miles without having the chart in front of me, but I can get you that.
And this is just for the use of the trail. And,
Just from Lime Timber.
And then
property.
it's maintained by the Hague Club.
8 snowgoers, correct.
Further discussion regarding this matter? Mr. McGowan?
We did have a discussion on this. We had a contract with them to use their land for this.
Correct. That is Sweet Hollow.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
Are we ready for the question then? All those in favor of the resolution with Lime Timber signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. We'll move down to item 4 on the agenda, referral pending, resolution number 584, declaring the Boston and Maine caboose located at Thurman Station as surplus property, was tabled at the December 20th board meeting and sent back to committee for further discussion. Chair will entertain a motion reading this to the floor for consideration. Mr. Merlino, Mr. Leggett on the second. Discussion, what do we have here?
So we did put out the caboose to be sold on a bid. We received 2 bids, one for $1,500 and then one for $1,044. But I also know there's discussion of us keeping the caboose in the county, so this is why it's back to committee.
So the high bid, if you will, was how much?
$1,500.
$1,500.
I'll give you 2,000 and Lake Luzerne.
Well, what's the pleasure of the,
I told him that.
what's the pleasure of the committee on this? Am I saying aye?
Higher bid.
Ms. Hogan? Supervisor Hogan?
Given the anemic bid and the fact that we're still kind of working out some details along the road, I think maybe we should just table it.
So that's that a motion to reject all bids? There's a motion by Supervisor Hogan to reject all bids. Do we have a second?
I'll second it for the discussion.
Second by Mr. Wild for discussion. Mr. Wild?
Oh, I have
Oh. Mr. Leggett?
Yeah, for clarification, this caboose has been outfitted. It is a concession stand, basically.
It is.
DOH approved, has all of the bells and whistles to be set up as a business entity, correct?
Yes.
Yeah, it's a valuable asset.
All right, we've heard the motion, and there's a second. Any further discussion? There being none, all those in favor of rejecting bids for the caboose signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Thank you.
If I may, Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
What are our plans with that in the short term? Are we gonna make sure it's protected and viable? So if we do decide to put it on the bike trail somewhere, that it's still gonna be a decent piece of equipment?
Mr. Hadros, would you like to respond to, do you visit it periodically and inspect to make sure there's no break-ins and it's not leaking? And
We do. Tim and his crew goes out there probably once a week. They review all the stations as well as the caboose, so.
Okay, thank you. Just making sure.
Mr. McGowan?
Isn't there, don't we have a, garage or something that's, on the tracks there with it, don't we have a turntable or something that, where we can put it in a covered area, now that everything's cleaned up?
Not where it is.
It's in,
Different town.
it's located in Thurman, and it's actually, when we did the stations in Thurman and Hadley, Thurman especially, has a sewer system in it. So right now that caboose is actually tied into that sewer system.
Okay.
So there'd be a lot of reconnecting and then moving it up the tracks. I think when Saratoga North Creek brought it down, they brought it down by truck, and craned it into the place where it sits today.
Fine, no, was just wondering, I just thought we could pull it around the corner and preserve it till we can figure it out, but.
All right. Frank Thomas. Mr. Thomas, Frank?
I would suggest that we have not seen this caboose, but up that way and permanent, stop by.
You're saying if you haven't been up that way to see it, take a look at it. Okay, I agree.
If anyone would like a tour, Tim and I would be happy to take you over there to take a look at it.
You've heard the offer, just contact Tim or Kevin, and they'll be happy to take you on a tour of the caboose.
Very much.
All right, let's move on to the subject of a Revolution Rail. Do we have, is...
Rob Hart.
Wait a minute.
I just want to talk about
Sure, we can talk about Mike Kelly's equipment first. Okay, we'll adjust the agenda, and let's talk about Mr. Kelly's equipment. Kevin, you have a report for us?
Yeah, just so you're all aware, there was an engine and a coach car up in North Creek that Mike Kelly had purchased from Hudson,
No, he leased it.
or he
Off
leased
us.
it from them.
He's the owner.
They've been up there since before Saratoga North Creek took over. He's been asked a couple times to move it. He hadn't moved it. I believe we've gone through a court proceeding to get him to move it. He has finally come up there, and last week they actually picked up the car and they did change the wheels. Problem is he doesn't have a lot of track to take it out of Warren County right now. He can't necessarily go to Hamilton County because they've had the washouts up there, and he really can't take it south below us because just less than a half mile out of North Creek we have the washouts down there. So he has come up and at least done something, but he just at this point can't remove it out of the county until we get our washouts replaced, and there's still a significant amount of trees that need to be cut for him to move it out of there. So that's the update that I wanted to provide to the committee.
Just, Mary, if you could just give us a status from a legal point of view.
Sure. So we filed our summons and complaint against him this summer. Right before we were going to file our default judgment motion, he actually hired an attorney who called us and asked if they could have an extension to answer. We did allow them to answer, and now we're waiting for a court conference, and that's where we are.
Supervisor Hogan?
Clear, he hasn't been paying any rent.
Not to my knowledge. I believe it's 7 years. How long has it been?
Oh, 9.
9 years. Supervisor Hogan?
That's our liability, even though he owns the equipment, we own the track. I have pictures of people standing on top of those cars, inside them, all over the place. So what's our liability there?
I mean, we're always, if someone were to get hurt and they were to sue him, the county, of course, is going to be named as well because we own the tracks under it. I mean, the county has some protection in the fact that you can't sue a municipality for punitive damages, so our damages would be capped. I mean, we're not providing the attractive nuisance, so I'm not sure that we would really have all that much liability, but we would be part of a lawsuit and we would be defending it.
So I guess the policy going forward with the staff's been following is all property not belonging to Warren County is to be removed from our property, period. And so that's what Kevin and the attorney and Ryan have been pursuing. It looks like, do you have a court date yet, or are you?
We don't have a conference yet, no.
You don't have a conference yet, but that's the status of it. So I guess what's the pleasure of the committee at this stage? I'm not sure what more we can do.
What happens in the eventuality that he doesn't comply, you take him to court, I mean, that the county ends up with this? Is that what happens, and then what do we do with it?
So we can, there's a couple of different things we can do. We can get a judgment asking him to remove the pieces of equipment. If he doesn't do it, we can then ask for damages for trespass, which would just be money to us, but it'd still be sitting on our tracks. We can also ask the court to say that he's abandoned it. I'm not so sure we have that argument anymore, because now that he's worked on it, it shows that he really hasn't abandoned it. He just can't move it. I personally think we should require him to put it on a truck and truck it out of there, but that's up to the board. And that would be very expensive, but I mean, that would be what I would think we would ask the court to do.
Mr. McGowan, Supervisor McGowan.
Yeah, how long have we been dealing with this? I mean, I see that you're here, and, you know, no offense, pointing you out, are you involved in this?
No.
Oh, I just saw the rail, oh, good, thanks. All right, so I'll open up a can of whoop butt. No, but how long have we been dealing with this?
9 years.
All right, one of the things that I've always found that usually when you're getting something for free, what is the motivation factor? One. Two, now, unfortunately, he's finally come to the point where we've gone through the motions, we've put in time and everything else. He decides, well, I'm gonna lift it up, put out some newer wheels, but unfortunately, due to some storm that we had and some restrictions, so we're gonna have to spend money, one, to get rid of the trees anyways to get it moved. Personally, after 9 years, all right, I wanna be, I think that we should, one, what do they call it when you, and I just had the word on top of my head, but when you, the insurance, I think sure, we should be, what is it when a business?
Unliable?
No, liable insurance, but,
Indemnify?
yeah, we should be indemnified. They should get insurance that covers us, if something happens. I mean, and
Make it health
I should have
harmless.
wrote it down, I didn't think I'd
Health
forget it.
harmless, I think it's called health harmless.
But that, I personally think that, hey, enough's enough. You want it, truck it, otherwise, scrap it and get it out of there, and put a timeline on it, and that's the end of discussion.
So I think, if I'm hearing the committee correctly here, it's, when you do conference on this, is we want it out, we don't care if you have to put it on a truck. And I assume the court's gonna put some kind of stipulation, you have to have it out by a certain date. If not, I think that certain penalties have to be provided. Is that? So I'm not sure that guidance has changed, but if everybody agrees that continues as our guidance on this, that we want that gone. Actually, it's two, isn't it? An engine and a coach car, so. All right, I think that's sufficient.
Additionally insured. That, I know sometimes when I do a contract, so when someone wants my insurance policy, but they want to be additionally insured by me, in case, you know, of any liabilities in that it puts me on notice, you know, more directly too.
They're named
I
on
think-
your
huh?
policy. They're named on your policy.
Right.
As additional insured, and it usually is not any great expense or
No, but I mean,
to the,
it just...
to the owner.
All right. Okay, thank
All
you.
right, I think the attorney's heard you, Supervisor
I think I got
McGowan.
it.
I
Yeah, we've been
think Mary's heard you loud and clear. I think she's heard everybody loud and clear on this. The guidance from the board is unchanged. All right, let's move now to Revolution Rail. Without objection, I'll offer the privilege of the floor. Is Michael Dupuy here?
Michael and Robert Hart is here.
Robert, if you could come to the podium, please, and...
Thanks, Robert. Sorry about that. Go ahead.
So my name is Robert Hart. I'm one of the owners of Revolution Rail. I guess it's high time that I got here so I could meet everyone again if I haven't met you already. So we are, the reason we're here is I guess I just wanted to introduce ourselves and then also just sort of give a quick recap on the past year to give you a state of our union. We had a good 2019. We had over 21,000 riders come and visit us and come into the depot at North Creek. And as a result of finishing our third season, we're looking to expand our operation and hopefully work together with you guys on your line. So that's why we're here.
You say 21,000?
Yes.
Any questions, Supervisor Leggett?
Thank you. With, you run mostly up on the Sanford line, is that correct?
Correct.
And the state of that, will that affect your business for upcoming 2020?
We're confident we're going to be able to work on that operation, and we think the demand is there to expand it. And so the things we're looking at is we're looking to go from the North Creek station. We want to stay in North Creek and then go down towards Riparius The other operation we're looking to do is Stony Creek Ranch has new ownership. We've met with them, and there was good synergy between us, and we thought we should just talk to them to see if they were looking to play together, and they seem amenable to it, and so we're looking at possibly another operation from the Stony Creek Ranch, the Thurman Station, and leaving the option open for Stony Creek towards Hadley, which we just haven't explored that. So those are the two main areas that we're looking at right now.
Ms. Bramer?
Thank you, Chairman. Can you give us an update on your filings with the STB related to the Sanford Lake line?
We're keeping our options open. We're pursuing conversations with them.
Didn't you file a letter of seeking to take the the sponsorship of the rail banking? I mean, that's a pretty significant move on your part.
Yeah.
So I want the committee to know that. You're serious. Your company is serious about pursuing the line for use for your business, the Sanford Lake line.
Yeah, we are serious. I mean, I'm not trying to hide that. We are looking to pursue that. I'm not sure what more you're looking for, Claudia.
That's what I'm looking for.
Yeah.
I want you guys to know that
Yeah.
that's a significant move on their part, because DEC said that they would be the sponsor of the rail banking, but now there's this hang up with Ed Ellis's company having gone into bankruptcy, and now there's like a federal bankruptcy trustee in place, and these guys are also stepping in to say, we're serious about this going into rail banking so that we can continue our operations, rather than the STB saying, no, this should continue to be open for freight.
Supervisor McGowan?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I really like the idea of multiple locations, and then also too, I mean, right now you start at the depot and then travel people up to the upper section. Now you'd be able to go from the depot out, or?
Yeah, that's the hope. Part of the reason, if you track the history of us coming into this community and everything, the first place we looked at was actually Stony Creek Ranch area. So we liked that area. Just it had obvious infrastructure needs. And then when we came up to North Creek, we just really connected to that community. And so we'd like to stay there. And logistically, if we don't have to bus people, that makes our world a lot better. And that's a very pretty run from North Creek down towards Riparius. You're along the Hudson River the whole way. We think it would be a great trip for people. Same with Stony Creek. It's a little bit different. You're along the Hudson River the whole way as well. So I think there's the bandwidth to all three of them work together. So
I think it's a phenomenal idea. Like I said, it gives people options. They could do one time, and then, we really just do this one. And I everybody that I've heard that has ridden it just enjoy it, and having Gene on the front that one time with the shorts was just a shocker to see. So
Supervisor Bramer?
Thank you. I mean, I just read an article recently about the benefits of the snowmobiling through the communities, and I think this is exactly the kind of thing that we could have all year long, those kinds of similar impacts. Bed and breakfast, people staying at Airbnbs, spending money on gas and restaurants and bars. This is, people going to our communities in the North Country. This is a tourism driver for us, and I think that we should be jumping on it, and I'd like to know, Mary, where we are with the abandonment proceeding on our line.
We're gonna have a report from the county administrator on that. That'll follow. We'll have a full report. It's on the agenda. It's the next item on the agenda. Mr. Merlino.
I think it's a great idea. You know how I feel. This year, in my little business, I must have called up there 20 times, couldn't get reservations for my guests to go up there because they were totally done. So it's a great idea to expand. Where you go, that's up to you. We'd love to have you down in Stony Creek and Hadley area, Lake Luzerne. We'd support it.
Thank you.
You had two entities, and even three, to help and get the equipment is your expense.
Right.
But But I think that right now, well, it's,
Make that happen.
nothing, you know, it's, something people like it.
Yeah. Do we have any money left in OCTA?
Yeah.
There are some other means.
Maybe we could,
Well, I
at
mean,
this
you gotta
stage.
understand, what the gentleman has there, it's young, middle-aged, and seniors. It's a type of a thing that everybody can do.
Supervisor Hogan?
And to that point, would you say 21,000
Yes.
people?
Last year, yeah.
Half a dime of octac, bringing a new season to North Creek.
Maybe we should hear from our county administrator regarding this,
Sure,
proposal.
sure. We would have an action item from this committee if we decide to go forward on this. So the proposal that's come to us is to run south from North Creek to Riparius, about 9 miles, and additionally to run either way from Stony Creek north to Thurman. They've looked at about 4 miles of track, and then south to Hadley is another 9 miles. We've had Kevin and his team speak with Rob and Mike and their team regarding safety concerns that we could get into in a moment. But let me lay out a couple of other terms that we talked about. One would be that to the extent that there are washouts, it's county infrastructure. The county will repair the washouts underneath the tracks that Revolution Rail would intend to run, but we would ask Revolution Rail for some help in clearing the trees and the overgrowth on those tracks with proper supervision from county DPW on the tree clearing. We would also look at this time for a 1-year agreement to cover this season, and then have the option to continue that annually by mutual agreement by both parties. We would look to have a termination clause in there. We do still have a rail line that's subject to Surface Transportation Board jurisdiction. If the STB tells us that we've got to run freight on this line, we would need the ability to evict the tenant, to put it bluntly, sorry. Otherwise it could amount to an illegal abandonment if we didn't have a termination clause in there. And then we would have to talk about fees, and that's something that we've batted around a little bit, and I think if this committee wants to further discuss that, we could do that in executive session.
Supervisor Wild?
I bring a motion to pursue this, with the caveat that they have e-bikes for some of those older people.
I have one. We're working on it. We are, yeah.
Could we maybe...
I'll take that caveat with it, but I believe that this is a very viable enterprise and a great opportunity to expand some of the economies that we have in the North Warren County.
Was that a second I saw, Brad?
Yep.
A second from Supervisor McGowan. I don't know at this stage you...
Well,
you should probably have any...
we should probably talk a bit about the safety concerns.
Yeah, when Rev Rail had proposed this, Ryan had sent it on to me, and Tim and I looked at some of our safety concerns along the track. Our biggest concerns were crossings, as well as some of our bridges. I would not want them across the Sacandaga Bridge. If most of you haven't been across that, it's 60 to 100 feet in the air, and as I talked with Rob and Mike yesterday, it'd be a great photo shoot from there, but there's no way. It's an open deck bridge. I wouldn't want them on that. In fact, I think we would probably come up with some type of barricade or something to block that off anyways. My other concern was the crossing, because as most of you know, the signals have all been basically disconnected except for the trickle charges staying on them to keep the batteries up to snuff. These bikes will not trigger the signals. So my concern with them going to Riparius is they were looking to use the Riparius station. As most of you, if you're aware, the Riparius station is right along New York State Route 8. It's 55 miles per hour in that area. It's a blind curve coming into that station. So, but both Mike and Rob assured me yesterday that if they didn't want, if we didn't want him crossing any of those locations, he wouldn't. They wouldn't go down to Riparius station. They would stay above and send the people, whether it be 3 miles, 4 miles, and then send them back up again. As far as from Stony Creek to Thurman, from the Stony Creek Ranch to Thurman Station, the only crossings that we have in that area are private crossings mainly. In fact, I think that's all private crossings in that area, and I don't have necessarily a concern in those areas. There are a few smaller bridges in that area, but as Mike and Rob both pointed out to me yesterday, when they were in Hamilton County, they crossed a lot of these smaller bridges with open decks as well. They haven't had an issue. So, I mean, that put my mind a little bit more at ease. And then as far as from, again, Stony Creek down to Hadley, as Mike and Rob both said, they really don't know how much of that area they want to use. And Gene, I hope they do use it for your sake. But again, they don't. There are some other crossing concerns we may have down there, but they'd really like to go down and see that area first and see maybe what part of that track they might want to use. So, I mean, they basically addressed the concerns that I had. And again, the biggest ones were the crossings. I'm glad that they're not even looking anything from Riparian south, because the Route 28 crossing is another one that I would not even want them to venture across in those areas. And again, the signals will never, even if we turn them back on, they would not get tripped by these bicycles coming across through there. And DOT, especially on 28 or 8, would most likely not allow flaggers to get out and stop traffic at these crossing locations. But they've assured me that they're not going to go through those crossings.
Supervisor Bramer?
I think this is a great idea. I would like to see maps and maybe have some more, like those terms that Ryan was reading off, written down. I mean, I like to see stuff on paper.
At this stage, I hate to say it, but I think we should probably have, because it's a contractual matter, we should briefly go into an executive session briefly regarding a contractual matter.
Lease of real property.
What's that?
Lease of real property.
And also deals with the lease of real property. I know, Don, I know it's getting late. I promise we'll keep it just as short as we can possibly keep it. We will... So with that, I think, though, we do have to have, we're dealing with a private company, lease of railroad property and contractual matters here, and I think that we need to have a brief powwow. I'm not saying it needs to be very long, and there's a motion on the table, which we'll have to come back and entertain, and that's why I think we need to at least have one brief executive session on this.
Do we have specifics that we're going to be talking about, or is it just general discussion about the elements that need to be part of this negotiation?
We have private information, financial information, and this is at the request of the vendor, the company.
All righty. So with that, I think that Cheryl entered a motion going to executive session. Mr. McGowan, Ms. Hogan on the second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, we're going into executive session. Let's try to keep it quick. Those that... session. We do have a motion on the table. Ms. Brainberry, is it regarding the motion on the table or something else?
Yeah, the motion on the table is to move forward, and we are going to do that through a negotiating committee, correct?
That would be my recommendation. I think what Supervisor Wiles' motion is that there's some interest here. Let's have some discussions on this, and let's come back to committee with some more details.
Okay, I would love to serve on that committee. And the other thing that I think I would do as part of my homework is talk to our planning department. I've been saying this is a public asset, and they have spent a ton of dollars and time investing in the First Wilderness Corridor. We need to involve them.
I think I'd like to ask, if it's all right with the committee, I'd like to ask the first and second vice chair of this committee, Mr. Merlino and Ms. Bramer, to serve on that negotiating committee to work with the county administrator, if that's acceptable to everyone. Okay, good. And now back to the motion that's on the table. Is there any further discussion on the motion on the table, which is to begin to have these discussions and to move forward and then come back to committee with appropriate details and information?
Chairman, all I do is ask that economic development should be part of this discussion.
Right.
Consider making it happen.
What committee? I think that if you get an affirmative vote, I think you have your answer on that. Ms. Bramer?
Thank you. Just before we take the vote on this, I would like to know where we are with the abandonment and if the STB has any say over whether or not we do this right now.
We can answer those brief questions before we go into the full
If the STB told us you have to do freight, then that's why we have a termination in there. We would have to free up the line for freight.
Which I don't see happening.
Okay. Where are we with our abandonment proceeding? We did pass that motion, correct?
No, we didn't pass it yet.
What? Yes, we did.
No, she means the motion to authorize you to begin to
Oh,
move forward.
well, that
with
was a
it.
resolution, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've taken some steps that I was gonna report. Is this out of order?
Well, it is. I just don't know how much more you require of his report before we can act on the motion in front of us.
Okay.
All right, are
That's
we good?
next on the agenda.
All right.
Okay.
On the motion at hand,
Can I bring up one?
sure.
Thank you. We're under a bit of a time crunch to kind of make this happen if it's going to be a reality in the season. I just want to put that out there for you guys. If we're really going to be able to do this, getting the production going and the money and getting booking and there's just a lot of things that we want that we have to jump through. So if there's any way to expedite that, we'd be happy to help facilitate that time frame.
I think that working very closely and directly with the county administrator and the committee that we just established will hopefully achieve that. If it can be achieved,
It can be.
if it can be achieved, that's the best way to achieve it.
What's your timing? Yeah, what is your timing?
Yesterday.
Yeah.
No.
I mean, like, so if we go much further, like a month or so further, it just makes, I don't know if we'd be able to do it for this coming year.
Yeah.
It's just a reality, but
We'll make every effort to try to meet whatever timeline there is to meet, but it does have to be rational and it does have to be reasonable. We can't just, but we will, we're prepared to call a special meeting if it's required. We're ready to convene at a moment's notice if it's needed. All right, we have a motion that's on the table. Any further discussion? Are we ready for the question? All those in favor of moving forward with these discussions, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
No opposed? All right, thank you very much.
Awesome.
And now,
February board meeting.
Brian, are you ready to move forward with?
I'm ready when you are.
Okay, why don't we move forward with our, if we could move forward with Ryan's report on where we are with the abandonment?
Yes. You're on my notes here. So, a couple of days before the board meeting, I talked to the Surface Transportation Board. There was the director of the Division of Public Liaison was on there, as well as the deputy director, who he reports to, and a couple of their attorneys were on the line. The purpose of the call was to bring them up to speed on where we are with our 40 miles and the resolution that the Board of Supervisors passed in December, and to get the STB's feedback on the timeline for going forward with this abandonment. This is the information that I was given. They said their advice was to see what happens with the Tahawas line. They said that the Tahawas line is going to make all the difference here, and that we would be the advantage of us to waiting for that to come to a conclusion, and it's close to a conclusion. The advantage of us waiting to do that is it will make an abandonment proceeding over our line a lot simpler. The feeling of the STB is that that's quite close to conclusion. The freight interests that exist up there, I believe they know what they need to do. But the rail business is a put up or shut up business, and that's where that's at temporally. The Saratoga North Creek Railroad is the common carrier over our 40 miles by virtue of an exemption that was filed in 2011. That exemption is online on the STB's website if you look up this docket. And Warren County acquired this rail line in a manner that did not imply that the county itself had a carrier obligation. What that means is that changes the character of an abandonment. It wouldn't necessarily be an abandonment. It may be an adverse abandonment, much like what the state did with the Tahawas line. We can't answer that question with any finality until the issues that are being worked out right now on the Tahawas line are being worked out. One of the supervisors earlier referred to a bankruptcy proceeding and a receivership. That's the issue. We don't know, the STB, I should say, does not know what right Saratoga North Creek Rail has to negotiate on these issues. or who they need to be talking to. They've directed Saratoga North Creek Rail to get a legal opinion and figure that out. That's waiting for whatever's going on in the court. So doing an abandonment would require Saratoga North Creek Rail or whomever appropriate legally to do that. Otherwise, the STB's best advice right now is it would be adverse abandonment. But again, the main idea here that they gave to me is wait and see what happens with Tahawas. It shouldn't be that long, and then we can regroup and do whatever's best.
Did you discuss what the status was of the existing operator on our line?
That's in reference to the operator has the carrier obligation, the county does not. So if we had the carrier obligation, then we could do an abandonment proceeding because we're the actor that is saying, I don't want to be involved anymore. The complexity here is that somebody other than the county has that carrier obligation in the Surface Transportation Board's eyes right now.
Supervisor McGowan.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Does anybody know on this board making this decision on this abandonment down there, or whatever group is making this decision, as the condition of the tracks to bring this kind of weight down from the north all the way to the south, and how much it's going to cost the infrastructure to get this line prepared to carry this weight? I mean, I just...
They are.
And yet it takes so long to make a decision?
They're aware of it. But the Surface Transportation Board exists to preserve freight where there can be freight. They're not, that's the mission of their organization. So
what's the practicality of it? You know what I'm saying? It's like I said, the whole reason it's not being hauled now, one, there is no market for it. Two, it's so heavy and it costs so much to move, and they can get it cheaper to where they have to move it to.
Well, you do have a customer up in the mine, and you have a hauler, R.J. Corman, that's been talking to them that would disagree with that. It's on them to make that case to the Surface Transportation Board.
Thank you. Thank you for the updates and all you put into it.
Sure.
I know it's just frustrating.
Supervisor Wild.
I'm not going to nominate Brad to be put on the STB board, but I do have a question about this carrier obligation. Is that an asset that could be transferable to the bankruptcy, so that we have some other entity that's going to all of a sudden appear and say, we're taking over this carrier?
It's a good question. When we were negotiating with United Rail, I always asked that question, how much are you going to have to pay Saratoga North Creek to get that common carrier obligation transferred to you? And their feeling was nothing, but I'm not sure that was but it's a different story. That carrier designation would have value to them. It wouldn't have value to the county.
No, I understand, but is there some other entity due to the bankruptcy proceedings that could raise their ugly head and say, we're going to fight you this abandonment?
I couldn't answer that question.
Okay.
Any other questions for the county administrator?
And this isn't to be an open-ended thing. We can't wait forever, but they thought this was very close to wrapping up on the Tahawas line and said, keep your powder dry is the best advice they gave us at this point, but we can revisit next month.
All right, given the time, I'd like to move this along. I apologize, we were late in meeting. The county administrator, of course, is available to answer any of your questions at any time. And with that, I really would like to move into the DPW agenda. We have a number of action items dealing with the to fill positions, 3 MEO positions. These are budgeted positions, correct?
They are.
They're all organizational and budgeted positions that he's looking to fill. Chair will entertain a motion, hopefully to bring all 3 of these to the floor for consideration. Mr. Leggett, Mr. Merlino on the second. Is there any questions for Kevin Hajost regarding his filling these 3 positions? There being none, are we ready for the question? All those in favor of the request to fill these 3 MEO positions signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Brief update on FEMA.
As Frank had brought to the board meeting, we did have the applicant briefing with FEMA. I think most everybody has their paperwork in. I've already received an email from FEMA to get into the portal now so we can start uploading our information. So that's it. That's where we are now. They'll start having meetings with each one of us to kind of make sure that we have all our paperwork in order so we can get reimbursed 75%.
Alrighty. And update on the salt reduction initiative?
As most of you know, I talked about this earlier this year, we have moved to the treated salt. I believe we're using, based on what I can see now, less. We are out of brine right now, and we have no ability right now to obtain any unless I can work with possibly the town of Lake George. The company Street Treats, who was supplying brine before, has been bought out by Appalachia, and they're not making the brine right now. And I believe Hague is probably having the same issue, and probably Bolton as well. So one of the things that I have done is I've reached out to Dave Wick and asked if there is any type of grant or funding opportunities for the county to purchase a brine making machine. They run about $40,000 to $50,000, but then we could all make our own brine in-house. We put about 35 gallons per mile of road of brine down. I have 6 tanks that can hold up to 18,000 gallons, and it takes about a ton of salt to make about 1,000 gallons of brine. As most of you know, we use the brine to basically pre-treat the roads to prevent that initial setting up of snow on our roads, easier to remove. But again, I can't get it anymore right now through Street Treats, and I'm hoping to work out something with Supervisor Dickinson and the town, because they have a machine, but it probably is a smaller machine and probably cannot make as much as we would, everybody in the county would use.
Yeah, this originally started out, we were going to make our own brine, and then we found a supplier that could do it at a fraction or less than what we could do it at, and so we're sort of coming back around to full circle on this, but we'll keep the committee posted on exactly where we are with the brine and the brine making.
And the one thing I wanted to say is I've talked to Rob Vopolis, who makes the brine for the town, and he says they can make it for about 6 cents a gallon, and I think we were paying somewhere between 25 to 30 cents a gallon with Street Treat. So I think it's worth, if Dave Wick could get us a grant and we could buy this piece of equipment, I think it would be worth it, and then maybe we could work out agreements with all the towns if we had it in place.
Yeah. And that would be for all the towns. All the towns in the county, correct, Kevin? Anybody that wants to brine?
Except, of course, for the town, because they have their own, the town of Lake George.
Okay. Alrighty, thank you for that update. Given the hour, I have no other further discussion. I would like to entertain a motion to adjourn. Mr. Wild on the motion. Mr. Bruno on the second. Mr. Bruno on the second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? We are adjourned.
Hey, Glens Falls can use that brine.